What's up, y'all? What up, what up, what up? Alright, so check it out. So, welcome to Caffeine and Conspiracies. I got my caffeine right here. Hitting it with the Celsius again. There we go. Yep. Just so you can see. It's raspberry acai green tea. I remember before when I was still kind of oblivious to the Brazilian culture, even though I was still training jiu-jitsu. I remember calling it acai, whatever. I can't even say it wrong on purpose now. And hearing people say that, and they're like, dude, bro, it's acai. Get with it. Get with it. All right, so check it out, y'all. I got instead of a notepad or a note card, I have a piece of paper. One of my best friends, I added him to this secret group. We talk about what's going on. And he's like, what do you think, man? Yeah, like watch this and watch that. What do you think? And I'm like, well, you know, there's a lot going on. And this kind of is all in line with what I've already said in previous episodes. And so, you know, I think studying the New World Order from a younger age and realizing that it wasn't really just a theory. You know, now looking back, it wasn't just theoretical. It never did seem theoretical, but you know, you go through life and for me, I'm focused on this and this and this and this, and kind of like forget about what's over here sometimes, and they capitalize on that, the fact that we're unaware, sleeping, right? So, looking at, you know, the details on 9/11, the insurance policy that was taken out days before or a day before, the black budget for the defense projects that was in the room that was hit by a plane that reporter said he never saw. The Pentagon. Henry Kissinger, what he has said, what George Soros has said, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, dude, like it's just so much. The Federal Reserve, information with that, exposure to UFO technology and the possibility of extraterrestrial life, the secret library at the Vatican, the secret archives at the our government has that we know was a secret and we're not allowed to see. But why? But why? And I think I was having a debate with someone a little bit earlier. It was a friendly just conversation, kind of a debate. And I don't think it is right that there are secrets. And the fact that so many of us know that there are secrets that exist, it's not a theory. They are there, openly talked about, and still kept secret from the population. I don't think it does us a service, and I don't think that we're truly free unless these things are disclosed. So just wanted to point that out. I think it's very interesting what we've seen recently. We've seen last year the firearms or weapons withdrawal. I think basically the bill that was signed by Trump last year, basically saying we will not allow UN forces in the United States to just walk around. That was pretty interesting. So the original New World Order conspiracy involves, you know, FEMA takeover, government overhaul, all these other things that are overlapping, and then having foreign troops operate on U.S. soil. And that was written last year, or it was signed last year, basically saying no. Very interesting. Go check that out. The withdrawal from the World Health Organization and the speaking about the withdrawal from the World Trade Organization. Very interesting stuff there. You know, and then Soros and others talk about pushing power to China. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Trump's in office and not Hillary, because Hillary was part of this whole thing, was part of this whole thing. This massive millennia old conspiracy. So it's very interesting that there's a push for China to have power and to assume control. And then you look at like some people that don't believe in conspiracies would call coincidences, but they all make sense. The fact that the World Health Organization really is China-centric. A lot of what they do actually benefits China, even though China puts in less than 10% of what the United States has put in for the last, you know, handful of decades. The fact that Tedros was lying about how bad it was, or just the case in general over in China, and he was there in early January. The fact that we pulled out and they appointed 4 new heads of individual positions at the World Health Organization by Chinese nationals. Very interesting, very interesting. You look at the adrenochrome, there's speculation that adrenochrome which I've discussed earlier, is the adrenaline-infused blood that's used by these satanic cult essentially for ritual, and they get that from sex trafficking victims. You go look at that. Go look at that stuff. Pizzagate, Pedogate. It's dark. It's dark. But control your mind, control your heart. So don't dive too hard. So that lab, it's apparently right in Wuhan. We look at just recently Dr. Fauci, who has heavy involvement in the NIH, was cleared 3 years, I believe, after a new bill was signed stating it was illegal to help and send grants to virology labs, or bioweapons labs. Sent $3.7 million, or greenlit it, and the involvement with Bill Gates in that, and it's very interesting stuff. So yeah, I think there's a push to do something here, because we look at the numbers. Even if we assume that all these other countries are not reporting properly, we look at the majority of our numbers, whether they're amplified or not, which I think they are. You look at all the other countries in the world, and you see the numbers that are being reported. It does not seem to add up to make sense. It doesn't at all. And we're even faulty. Our system, I talked to a buddy of mine who's a medical professional, and it doesn't make sense. Even with the flaws that we've seen in our system, and then the actual intentional lying and deception that's been played out, when you look at other countries, it does not make sense at all. So I think that we're going to see some interesting things surface, especially with the newfound evidence, incriminating evidence against the DNC, the hard left, and the agenda to basically it's the New World Order agenda. A lot of things are surfacing, a lot of things that were said and done that were not found in truth, but rather lies by people involved in the CIA, FBI, NSA, the DNC. I mean, you name it. Like across in other parts of the world too, there was a lot of lies that were told, and we're going to see some justice. I pray and hope and believe we will. So I just want to throw that at you. Seeing the Rockefellers, if you're not familiar with them, they're one of the 5 families that basically run the Federal Reserve and own it, or did until it was absorbed by the Treasury. They just pulled out of oil, apparently. They just pulled out of the oil industry, and they've been involved for over 100 years. So I think we're going to see some interesting shifts. I think the petrodollar is going to completely tank, pun intended, but in a good way. I think we're going to see a massive transition from one industry to another. There's going to be a learning curve, but I think we're going to see some advances in technology that we haven't seen before ever, that are like most people think are science fiction. And I say that with the ground that I've looked at. I look at Tesla. I mentioned this earlier, Tesla, and what he accomplished, and the speculation of the technologies that he had developed and blueprinted were not lost at all. And then you have the speculation of extraterrestrial involvement in technologies that have been covered up. I mentioned that earlier as well. And I think that, for me, again, I believe in God, I believe in Christ. And I think that there's this notion that if you believe in Christ, that we can't fathom there being an existence of another species that God might have created that is, like us. And I don't know. I mean, who knows, really? I think that it comes to a spiritual discernment between you and God. I think that we could speculate that aliens are the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, the fallen race of angels, and their spawn are still in existence, which are called in the film. We could talk that. We could look at other mythologies, and I think it's very it's one of these moments in time where we're gonna have to really get centered on God and allow Him to increase our awareness and prepare our hearts and minds for what might be happening underneath all of this, the fog of war, essentially. So we're prepared. I think it's very important that we don't know. We know that God, if you believe, you know that God controls everything, and He wins in the beginning and end. He wins. So I think we're going to see some interesting things that we need to make sure we're prepared for. And one thing I do want to point out is I think that there's this consensus that you can't fight for justice if you're a Christian. I think that we're called to seek justice, but you have to seek justice without malice. That's what I believe, and I think that's backed up by biblical text. And if anybody has anything to say, feel free to comment. And I'm not a scholar, but I think that we're called to be sheepdogs, to be protectors of the innocent, to seek out the wolf and bring justice to the wolves. I believe that strongly, and I think that modern day we've been put in a situation where the system, we're taught, say, thou shalt not kill, and I'm pretty certain, and someone can mention this if you want, from what I've gathered, the original context of that commandment is thou shalt not murder. And there's a difference between murder and killing. And I think when you think about being a sheepdog and called to defend those who are, it's not saying it's okay to take a life, but it's simply stating, like, when someone comes to do you harm and people you love, I think we're called to stand up and to fight for what's right and to stand up for justice. And not seek vengeance, but to seek justice without malice. That's my point. So I wanted to point that out. So whatever happens in the next few days, weeks, months, I think we need to be ready to stand up. And this is not a call to arms. This is simply me stating what I think we should be doing. So yeah, let's oh, man. Alright, yeah, I'm about to run out of battery. So one thing I want to encourage you guys to check out is check out healthfreedomsummit.com. Go look at some of this information they have on vaccines. Mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. I am sold on not being sold the vaccine. Go check out Operation Underground Railroad and start to dissect what these missions are. These are things that are all surfacing at the same time. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's all connected. I think they all overlap. I think we're called as believers to link arms, to stand up, and to step forward. Go check out some of these new things about Bill Gates. These things are wild. I think that we're going to see some interesting things. I think that we need to educate ourselves and prepare ourselves to see people of big stature, what they've put themselves in a position of authority or stardom. We need to see justice be brought, and I think we're going to see some interesting things. The vaccines, this is just the Bill Gates thing right here. Let me just throw this at you. The idea of creating artificial intelligence and microchipping us, and the vaccinations and the blocking out the sun. Go look at all that stuff. Go look at the push for the World Health Organization. Go look at the push for China's involvement with the Wuhan lab and Bill Gates' involvement in all that. And then go look at the accusations that he's facing right now from other countries. And in his Instagram, I mean, it's crazy, guys. It's crazy. So please, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and start to dig. Dig. There's a lot more going on here than what we're told. Soften your heart. Harden your mind to, I don't know. So prepare your mind, prepare your heart, prepare your soul. Dive in, breathe, and I pray that God protects all of us, you, me, and protects our heart and mind and soul from the truth that I think, and most people that I've connected with, a lot of people think, is about the surface. We got to prepare ourselves for this. So yeah, love you, I appreciate you. Have a phenomenal evening and day. May God's grace be over you and yours.